Foreign Ministry denounces Sudan's unwarranted, provocative and increasingly belligerent says AU-led tripartite negotiation will bring amicable solution to GERD dispute. A very warm welcome to Addis News Hour with the news. I'm Shifar Olako. Thanks a lot for watching us. Ethiopia has denounced the unwarranted, provocative and increasingly bellicose propaganda campaign by Sudan. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has responded to the statement issued on the GERD and the Ethiopia-Sudan border dispute by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Sudan. The statement is presented as follows.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia had to issue this press statement because of the unwarranted, provocative and increasingly bellicose propaganda campaign by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of the Sudan against Ethiopia. Ethiopia has for long refrained from reacting to the numerous fabricated stories appearing in the press statements of Sudanese institutions and remarks by government officials taking into account the historic and fraternal relations between the brotherly peoples of Ethiopia and the Sudan. However, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia, with a view of putting the record straight, would like to make the following points very clear to the brotherly people of the Sudan and the international community at large. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Sudan, in its press statement issued on 1st May 2021, has once again attempted to mislead the people of the Sudan and the international community on issues related to the Ethiopia-Sudan boundary and the trilateral negotiations on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam GERD. Ethiopia, as an old independent and sovereign country, has time-tested reputation in respecting international treaties and obligations it has signed. The unfounded statement of the Sudanese Foreign Ministry only aims at covering up the continuing aggression committed by the Sudan since November 6, 2020, in violation of international principles, bilateral agreements and established joint boundary mechanisms. The unprecedented hostile military actions by the Sudan, the current chair of our regional organization, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development IGAD, has resulted in the looting and burning of properties, killing of civilians, as well as the displacement of thousands of Ethiopians. Ethiopia strongly believes that all the recent actions and vitriolic propaganda campaigns of the government of the Sudan against Ethiopia do not reflect the wishes and aspirations of the peace-loving people of the Sudan. Ethiopia has been consistently calling the government of the Sudan to reverse its aggression and resolve the boundary issues in accordance with bilateral agreements and joint boundary mechanisms to finalize the redemarcation process. The reference in the Sudanese statement to the Benishangul Gumuz region of Ethiopia is indeed utterly ridiculous. It is common knowledge that Ethiopia's historic territories in the west would have been extended beyond what is now Ethiopia's boundary if it was not for the existing boundary agreements. The attempts by the government of the Sudan to mix the boundary treaties with the unjust, exclusive and colonial-based bilateral agreements on the utilization of the waters of the Nile is regrettable. As far as Ethiopia is concerned, it has repeatedly expressed its position regarding those colonial-based agreements whose sole aim was and still is to deny the rights of upper riparian states, including Ethiopia, to use the waters of the Nile. Ethiopia, therefore, categorically rejects any and all attempts to preserve a self-appropriated water quota among the downstream countries. The insistence of downstream countries to monopolize the waters of the Nile and politicization of technical issues are the main challenges that the trilateral negotiations have faced. Ethiopia calls for the peaceful resolution of the boundary issues with the Sudan based on the existing joint boundary mechanisms and finalizing the trilateral negotiations on the GERD in accordance with the Declaration of Principles DOP of 2015. In fact, it is not clear to whose interest that the current authorities in the Sudan have suddenly changed their position, although they have repeatedly pointed out that the GERD has enormous benefits to the Sudan. Ethiopia highly values the historical and brotherly relations that exist between the two countries, and thus still committed to address all related issues through dialogue and negotiations. It once again calls upon the government of the Sudan to desist from an unhelpful campaign and commit itself to dialogue and peaceful resolution. In this connection, Ethiopia looks forward to the engagement of the international community in encouraging the Sudan towards a peaceful resolution of the dispute.
In another development, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia says Sudan's claim over Benishangul Gumuz region is a belligerent propaganda campaign. Ministry spokesperson Ambassador Dina Mufti has briefed the press on current issues. James McGraw reports.
Welcome to our weekly briefing.
Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Ambassador Dina Mufti gave press briefing on latest development in Ethiopia. In his press briefing, Ambassador Dina addressed Ethio-Sudan border conflict and the upcoming general elections, along with other political and economic diplomacy issues. Ambassador Dina noted that Sudan recently claimed over Benishangul Gumuz region as its own territory. The claim, according to the ambassador, is not only unwarranted and provocative, but also increasingly bellicose propaganda campaign.
Sudan has been giving provocative statements over the last since it has invaded Ethiopian territory, November 6. Ethiopia has been there was tolerance. We can call it over tolerance on the part of the Ethiopian government because of its commitment for peaceful resolutions of this border dispute. However, the Sudanese have continued violating Ethiopian territories, looting Ethiopian properties, and giving out negative propagandas. Particularly the recent statement on the Benishangul is non-starter. It is a statement that has been ill-conceived, and based because the Benishangul issue has nothing to do with other border disputes with Sudan. It has nothing to do also with the trilateral negotiations that we carry out on the GERD. So the Ethiopian government vehemently has condemned it.
The spokesperson also said European Union cancels its election observation mission to Ethiopia. This, according to Dina, comes after the Ethiopian government declines to accept EU's illogical election observation precondition. Ambassador Dina also talked about the repatriation of some 683 Ethiopian citizens from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia in its statement says, although few external observers could add some value to strengthen the quality of electoral processes in Ethiopia, they are neither essential nor necessary to certify the credibility of an election. Following EU's decision to cancel the deployment of its observation mission for the forthcoming elections in Ethiopia, the government says the validity and legitimacy of Ethiopia's election is strong-minded only by Ethiopian laws, Ethiopian institutions, and ultimately by the people of Ethiopia. Kasan Chane presents the full statement as follows.
The government of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia has learnt with disappointment of the decision the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy to cancel the deployment of its observation mission for the upcoming general elections. All possible efforts were made by the government to conclude administrative arrangements for the deployment of the mission, but these were to no avail. When the European Union requested to observe the 6 national elections earlier this year, the government of Ethiopia immediately accepted and started negotiating in good faith on the draft agreement for the deployment of the observation mission. Concerned government institutions and the National Electoral Board of Ethiopia were engaged in the process, and while work was underway to finalize the agreement, the government also welcomed and facilitated the visit of the exploratory mission of the European Union to Ethiopia 2 months ago. The exploratory mission had a productive stay and held discussions with various stakeholders. This was the impression the government obtained from the mission upon the completion of ERA's work, and whose recommendations later on led to the decision by the European Union to deploy the of the mission. While the government was working tirelessly and expeditiously, hoping to reach an agreement on the modality of the deployment, it is very unfortunate to have learned that the issue of communications equipment was put forth as a deal breaker for the European Union to observe one of the most hoped for democratic elections in the country's history. The government of Ethiopia from the beginning has made it abundantly clear that visa services can only be provided by the Ethio Telecom, while accepting additional requests by the European Union to import related equipment. As an important strategic partner and staunch supporter of the reform process, this demand by the European Union has come as a surprise to the government of Ethiopia, as none of these elements were a bone of contention in the past elections. At a time when the telecommunication infrastructure in Ethiopia has made huge strides employing the latest available technologies, questioning the effectiveness and efficiency of ERA services is not a convincing reason to take the hasty decision of cancelling the mission's deployment. In the same vein, the European Union has also rejected the proposal by the Ethiopian side to include in the agreement that the statements or public comments by the observer mission prior to the issuance of its preliminary findings and conclusions not be prejudicial to the election process or influence the perception of the public on the result of the election to be announced.
Well, to tell us more on this issue, we are joined on the phone by Ambassador Dina Mufti, the spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia. Ambassador, good evening and good to have you.
Good evening. It's a pleasure as well to be your guest.
All right. Now, as you know, the EU observation mission wants to declare election results earlier than the Electoral Board of Ethiopia, which, to our understanding, has never been done before. What does this mean in the first place?
Well, thank you very much. First and foremost, Ethiopia is committed to conduct fair, democratic, and free elections. And there is an independent election board that has been constituted, and that election board is in operation right now. Everybody else is in full swing, and the preparation for fair, democratic, and free election is in full swing. While this is happening, the EU have sent exploratory team so that they have they promised to send observers. Though yesterday we were caught by surprise by the EU announcement of cancelling sending observing delegation, observer team. The reasons they have given out are amazing. One of the reasons are technical issues that should not be a deal breaker. They were claiming to be denied bringing in visas. Bringing in visas. The reason for bringing in visas could not be obvious to anyone because Ethiopian telecommunication has capable technological means to follow observation. And it's not very difficult for them actually to operate by using the technical capacity with the Ethiopian telecommunication owns. The second reason they are put forward is also doesn't hold water because they were talking about advertising the outcome of the election before the National Election Board does. As far as Ethiopia is concerned, Ethiopian government, the body that conducts election is only responsible for the Ethiopian people. The people that are out to certify the Ethiopian elections credibility are Ethiopians because it is their elections. Second to Ethiopians, the National Election Board, which is independent, is the only authority, pertinent authority that should in fact certify this election. Unfortunately, they have insisted on announcing the election prior to the election board, which doesn't work because this is very unusual. This has never happened to any country. Any sovereign country doesn't accept those sorts of dictations that are being imposed on Ethiopia, and that's why it has been rejected.
Indeed. Ambassador, let's also talk about the Sudan, which has been, as you know, wreaking heavy damage to Ethiopians, which Ethiopia has to tolerate for the sake of peaceful resolution of the border issue. However, it is now getting more belligerent than before, to the point of claiming Benishangul Gumuz. This is tantamount, if you like, to claiming the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, right? Which has been built by the contribution of Ethiopians from all walks of life.
That's right. As a matter of its foreign policy, Ethiopia is committed to good neighborliness with the neighboring countries, and Sudan is one of our neighbors. We respect the Sudanese people. We value them. We have a natural bondage with them, which we always value at the highest level. Though the recent activities by Sudanese military group, the acts of invading Ethiopian territory, looting Ethiopian property, and the displacing of farmers is something that should be condemned. And it is an act which Ethiopia has been tolerantly trying to rectify by bringing to the international community's attention what the Sudanese military junta has done, though that they have taken it for being timid. And instead of regretting what they have done, instead of desisting from those acts, the Sudanese have continued provoking Ethiopia to the extent of claiming our legitimate sovereign territory to be there. This is something that is definitely doesn't work, doesn't represent Sudanese interest, the interest of the people. Is actually a proxy thing, which only mercenaries can do, and that is what we have condemned in our statement by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs today.
Well, Ambassador, thank you so much for your perspectives, and have a great night.
You are welcome. Have a nice evening. Take care.
ትውፊቱን የኮሶው በርን የእንጅባራን ታሪካዊ አመጣጥ እሴቱን እንመለከታለን።
እንጅባራ ማለት በኢትዮጵያ ታሪክ ውስጥ የጥንት ከተማ ከሚባሉት አንዱ እንዲሁ እንጅባራ በማለት ሳይሆን ረጅም ዘመን ያስቆጠረች ከጎንደር ነገስታት ጀምሮ የተመሰረተች
Now, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has encouraged citizens that have not registered yet to utilize the extended period and get their voters' card. The Prime Minister made the remark during a weekly evaluation of electoral preparations with regional chief administrators and National Election Board of Ethiopia. Quote, voter registration is progressing well, and I encourage citizens that have not registered yet to utilize the extended period and get their voters' card, the Prime Minister said on his Facebook page. In another development, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has sent his congratulations to Ethiopians on the occasion of the 80th anniversary of Patriots' Victory Day, which will be celebrated tomorrow. Egypt's former Foreign Minister Mohamed Al-Orabi says Ethiopia and the international community at large will not take the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam dispute seriously until it can be shown that Egypt and Sudan are capable of deterring any threat and defending its rights. Habtamu Ashagri presents the full story as follows.
During an interview with the Tahat al-Sham shows, Egypt's former Foreign Minister Mohamed Al-Orabi said on Monday that Egypt and Sudan have acted diplomatically and implemented all its minutes during the past 10 years, and so there is no problem with showing the potential for deterrence. I see that the Ethiopian side has begun to feel this level of deterrence power with the talk of an Egyptian-Sudanese military agreement, and their recent statement shows that they have begun to feel anxious about showing an Egyptian-Sudanese deterrence force, Egypt's former foreign minister said. The Security Council will not step in until it sees their tensions could easily escalate and disrupt security in the region. Both Sudan and Egypt have turned to the United Nations Security Council in hopes of a resolution on the dispute. In response, Ethiopia's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Demeke Mekonnen announced that exerting unnecessary pressure on Ethiopia by internationally politicizing and internationalizing the matter will not make Ethiopia accept the colonial era treaty over the River Nile. The three parties have held several rounds of negotiations over the past decade but have ultimately failed to reach an agreement. Egypt voices fears that the grid will negatively impact the country's water supply and has insisted that measures be put in place to protect downstream countries in case of drought during the dam's filling process. Ethiopia, on the other hand, has stressed the importance of the project to bolster its economy, where more than half of the population currently lives without access to electricity.
Turkey believes that the African Union-led negotiation will bring amicable solution to the disputes over the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. The country also supports EU's peacemaking efforts in the Horn region. That's according to Turkish ambassador to Ethiopia Yaprak Alp in an exclusive interview with ETV English. Sentayo Tamrat reports.
Speaking to ETV languages on one of the hardest issues in the East Africa region, which is the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam dispute among Ethiopia, Sudan and Egypt, Turkish ambassador to Ethiopia Yaprak Alp said that the river should be used for the benefit of all parties, and the African Union-led tripartite negotiation will bring amicable solution to the 10-year-long negotiation over the GERD among the three parties, she said.
We believe that water resources should be to the benefit of everybody. We believe that this should be done through negotiation between the parties. And this should only be to the benefit. And we believe and hope that this will be solved within the African Union according to the rules that the three countries put together.
Turkey, like Ethiopia, is upstream country of the Euphrates and Tigris rivers in the Middle East, as both rivers originate in eastern Anatolia, while Syria and Iraq Iraq are located downstream, and the turbulence between Turkey and Syria on water issues continued until the Adana Security Protocol in 1998, which enabled Turkey and Syria to reach an agreement and laid the foundation for large-scale cooperation ranging from trade to tourism. Based on this experience, Ambassador Yaprak helped suggest Ethiopia, Sudan and Egypt should resolve the GERD dispute by themselves.
On the GERD issue, we also have a water issue. We also have a dam. We are also an upstream country, just like Ethiopia. And so we have a lot of experience on this issue. We believe that the countries involved should usually solve these water issues. They are the ones who are affected by it, upstream, downstream, etc. And we hope that this issue will be solved very soon for the benefit of all countries.
Asked about Turkey's role in the Horn region, Ambassador Alp said Turkey is in support of EU's peacemaking effort in the Horn region because the socio-economic and political activities in the region might affect boundaries beyond the region.
Turkey believes that the Horn of Africa is hugely important. I think everybody believes that. With the important countries here, Ethiopia being at the center, the fact that everything that happens in Ethiopia and the Horn affects the Middle East and the wider region as a whole, number one, is very important for the stability. That's why Turkey wants this stability, because you affect everything around you. Number two, because of our friendly relations. Of course, we only want peace and prosperity for Ethiopia. Number three, the amount of relations that we have with Ethiopia and the other countries in the Horn of Africa, Somalia, Sudan, Djibouti, they're huge. We have embassies everywhere in all of these countries. We are heavily invested in all of these countries, and we feel that their prosperity is our prosperity. That's the way we look at this. That's what we want for this. Now, we will only be involved if the countries involved want us to be involved.
Over the past 15 years, Turkey has gradually increased its political and economic ties with African countries. Its involvement has become more visible in sub-Saharan Africa, particularly in East Africa.
Now, still staying on this flagship project, Egypt is currently studying plans to, quote, mitigate possible ranks of the second filling of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, the Egyptian Ministry of Water, Resources and Irrigation announced on Sunday. Quote, we have 4 major plans to mitigate the effects of any potential water crisis. The ministry's spokesperson Mohammed Ghanem told Masraoui, stressing that all the scenarios were prepared in the event of quote-unquote worst possible conditions. The plans are water rehabilitation projects of lining 8,200 kilometers at a total cost of $5.1 billion, maintenance and construction of 92 water mixing and lifting stations, launching the Sahara Al-Mahsma project to discharge 1 million cubic meters per day, and the Bahar El-Bakar drainage station.
Ethiopia is the source of the Blue Nile and contributes over 85% of the Nile's stream flow. To this day, Egypt and Sudan are using 100% of the water, sticking to their 1959 colonial agreement between them. Not being signatories, Ethiopia and other upstream states do not recognize this agreement. Ethiopia is at the eve of completing the Great Renaissance Dam. Costing over $5 billion that is being paid by ordinary Ethiopians. This dam will generate 5.1 gigawatt of power, and it is a non-consumptive, eco-friendly, existential necessity to millions. The 3 countries have been in dispute over the construction, filling and operation of this dam. Even thought this dam provides major benefits to Sudan and Egypt in terms of reducing evaporation loss, silt, sedimentation and unexpected flood. This dam is not just about generating power. It is a matter of survival for millions of Ethiopians who deserve a dignified life as their Egyptian counterparts.
Now moving to other stories. Residents of Addis Ababa commend the decision passed by the Council of Ministers Saturday to designate TPLF and Sheni as terrorist groups. The residents approached by ITV articulated the need to ensure law and order in the country. Here is what they said.
It is undeniable fact that these groups are terrorists. However, it is too late in designating them as a terror group. Their crimes are known and documented well, not only in the country, but also abroad. Repeated demonstrations are held to uncover this fact. What the TPLF group is doing in the country has to be condemned. It kills innocent people and destabilizes the nation. So, the decision is timely and correct. We are currently witnessing such cruel attacks on civilians in different parts of the country. The case of Ataye is an example where children, women and elderly people have been together. And the latest attack on the way to Gojam can also be mentioned, signaling how the situation is getting worse. Therefore, the decision to designate Sheni and TPLF as a terror group will helpfully address the security issue across the nation.
በቅርብ ያደረጉት ሰሜን ሸዋ አጣዬ ምናም እነዚህ በፊት የተደረጉባቸው ይሄ ሁሉ ጥፋት ምን ለማግኘት ነው? ስንት ሺህ ዓመት ለመኖር የራሳቸውን ትግራይ ውስጥ ይሄ ሁሉ ወገናቸው እንደዚህ ስቃይ ውስጥ እና አማራ እንደዚህ ያደረገ እንትና እንደዚህ ያደረገ እያሉ እየዋሹ ነው ህዝብ ለህዝብ የሚያጨራሩ። ውጭም ያሉት ደግሞ ይሄንን አይምሯቸው ሰርቶ ህዝባቸውን ውሃ ቢሰጡት
Here I am in the Kalahari Desert in South Africa. I'm actually in the Kalahari Frontier Park, which is in a remote part of Northern Cape. It's about as far into South Africa as you get. We're bordered on one side by Botswana and on the other side by Namibia. This is the most beautiful region. It is everything you expect a desert to be, but with African animals. And we've seen a hell of a lot. We've seen lions, we've seen giraffe, we've seen an abundance of springbok and oryx. Today I've been and I have visited a bushman's village. The bushmen were there in their native dress, explaining their way of life with us. And I can tell you it's quite a frugal way of life. Lifestyle may be simple, but it seems to be that they're very, very happy people.
Then now we are back in our place where we was bushman.
And finally, in our continental news, the Democratic Republic of Congo officially declared the end of the 12th epidemic of the Ebola virus on Monday. It comes 3 months after resurgence in the east of the country in the North Kivu province. A total of 12 cases had been recorded, with 6 deaths and hundreds of people vaccinated since the resurgence of the epidemic on February 7 in North Kivu, the health ministry Ministry said the World Health Organization raised the epidemic to emergency status, fearing it would spread. The virus is mainly transmitted through bodily fluids and may cause symptoms such as fever, vomiting, bleeding, and diarrhea. That's according to Africa News. Finally, a quick reminder of the top stories. Foreign Ministry denounces Sudan's unwarranted, provocative, and increasingly belligerent propaganda. And the Turkish ambassador says EU-led tripartite negotiation will bring amicable solution to GERD disputes. And with that, we come to the end of this news edition. Many thanks for watching us.